I want to talk, and I know exactly what I want to talk about, and I know what I want to say, but it's one of those things where you know what you want to say, but you don't know how you're going to say it or how you're going to get there. And I just have so many thoughts, and I just want to get out because it's been a very emotional, and physically and emotionally sort of taxing 3 months. And this last month has been particularly aggro on my body. So 3 days ago, I had what is called an egg retrieval. And what that is going into surgery and then taking those eggs out of you that you have shot forth. And that in itself takes a lot out of you. But having been through a lot of stuff, you kind of develop, which I do have. I have trauma. And when you have that trauma, you have this inherent need to control yourself, your surroundings, your body. And it's a very big control issue. Good luck taking a person in that situation and trying to put them into a situation where the outcome is unknown or they don't have much control. Because if we can't put a name to something, we ain't doing it. I learned a lot about myself in the sense that I continued to allow myself to kind of give in to the process and give into other people having my best interests at heart. I have a great team around me, but only one nurse was particularly aggressive. How do you recoil before sticking somebody with an IV? She blew a vein. I don't know if you could see. I don't know if you could see, it's still bruised. She put it straight through my frickin' vein, and when they were trying to knock me out in the operating room, this was really fun. You know, when they try to talk you down, they're like, hey, so what's your favorite cocktail? Tell us about your favorite cocktail. Well, guess what? You're about to feel like you just had 3 of your favorite cocktails. And they didn't get to the punchline of the joke because as they're putting in the medication, it's not going where it needs to be. And I'm just like, so what's supposed to happen? And they kind of got like, wait a minute, why are you not getting knocked out? I'm like, I don't feel anything. As it turns out, the nurse kind of was very aggro. I felt a pop. I keep replaying that part in my brain, and she went straight through. And it explains why it hurt so badly. So in the operating room, they had to kind of redo it. But when it comes to getting surgery for me, I have to, even in situations where you would be just normally sedated, right? You go through propofol, and that's like normal sedation. I can't do that. And the reason that I can't do that is, welcome to trauma. We have bad stomachs. People with trauma, people who have anxiety, we just have really bad stomachs, and therefore I have acid reflux. If you have acid reflux, they're going to knock you out with anesthesia if you're going under, because even in situations where you would be sedated, they have to use anesthesia because they need to intubate you to protect your airway. So I could potentially aspirate that acid into my lungs, and that's not going to have a very fun end result. It's actually very dangerous. And this scares me every time because when it comes to surgery and when it comes to actually getting to the anesthetic portion of it, when you're being put under, that's where the dangers lie. That is where it's dangerous, and I get scared every time. And there's something about going through surgery that makes you kind of introspective to the point of spiritual, because it almost feels like you're being led to your doom. And I learned a lot about myself in the sense that I'm willing to endure a lot more. It's like a multi-layered process going through surgery. So I had to be there. 8:15 in the morning is when my surgery was. So I had to be there by 6:15. Therefore, we had to leave here by 5:30. I'm up, ass crack of dawn, going to the hospital, get this whole thing done. So there's so many layers. It's like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm getting up. I'm getting into the car now. I'm allowing myself to be driven. I'm walking into the building. I'm going through registration now. And then you're being led to the back. And then they're telling you to strip your clothes and put on this robe. So every single one of these steps, you're thinking in your head, am I going to do this or am I going to bolt? Knowing in your head that at any point you could say, you know what, no, I'm not doing this. But you continue. It's kind of like leveling up emotionally. Does that make sense? These are things that would cause me great anxiety. I'm putting myself in such a vulnerable state, and I'm allowing myself to continue to the next portion of the process every single time, and I'm allowing it to happen. Even though this nurse seemed Quacky McDuck, I still let her put that IV in, which that in itself kind of was dangerous. But also what I've learned in trauma therapy is that we tend to overanalyze, and that we will try to control our surroundings in a way that makes us hypervigilant. And I'm thinking maybe I'm just being hypervigilant. And the second she recoiled and I felt that snap into my hand, I'm like, nope, not hypervigilant. And of course, she missed entirely. My hand was ice cold. It was ice cold going on my arm, and that is because the fluid was actually going into my hand. So when I was there, they had to put it in my other hand, having to take off my wedding band, having to remove my clothes and put them in a bag, and they're in a locker somewhere along with my phone and everything else, and then walking back, because you are walked back to the surgery table and you're walked into the room, and the table is like a cross, which means they have these arm bits that come out and you have to put your arms out and they strap you to it. It is such a vulnerable position, and the fact that I allowed myself to be in that position, I am so freaking proud of myself, because each step I'm like, I'm gonna do this, get up on the table, cool, put your head back on the thingy. It's like this kind of cuff thing, because your head needs to be in a certain position so that they can intubate you properly. I'm really glad they realized that I was not going to sleep, because if they would have tried to intubate me otherwise, that would have been freaking painful. So it's just good to know that at any step of that process, I could have just bolted out the door and I didn't, and I just kind of allowed myself to give into the moment and to trust people around me. That in itself is very, very healing, because having trauma is that you don't trust anybody. You are so hyper-vigilant of everyone and everything that you think that everything is a threat, and that you just do not trust anyone. And I allowed myself. So I woke up in the recovery room. What was different about this time, because I've been put under anesthesia before, and I usually wake up and I feel like crap. You know that feeling? You feel really nauseous. You're just like, I don't like this. You just feel really nauseous and it's hard coming to. And I remember what the anesthesiologist said. She's like, okay, so you normally wake up feeling nauseous. She's like, I'm going to give you a mixture of propofol and Zofran just as I wake you up, and we're going to let you wake up naturally. So they didn't try to wake me up in the recovery room. So when I was actually waking up, I was waking up on my own. And once they saw me coming to, the nurse came over and she offered me a drink, and I was really thirsty. She offered me a bunch of different things, and I remember like, yeah, I love ginger ale. So I'm like, yeah, give me ginger ale. Thank you. I chugged that ginger ale so fast. She's like, you want another one? I'm like, yeah. As I polished off my second ginger ale, and I'm like, the grogginess, the residual grogginess is kind of like dissipating. Now I'm feeling like, I'm all right. The mixture medication they gave me while I was waking up made me feel so much better, because the propofol helps you wake up a little bit easier, and then the Zofran just completely kills any nausea. So I was feeling freaking great. So I asked where the bathroom was, which happened to be no more than 50 feet to my left. I'm like, perfect. I jump. I don't sit up. I just leap out of bed. I'm still bleeding. I'm still in this assless gown. And then I sprint, to the nurse's horror, across the floor into the bathroom. So I came out of the bathroom, and the nurse was waiting outside, because I guess she needed to, like, she was assigned to me and she needed to make sure that I was okay, because I'm post-op. I'm a little bit of a risk. They need to keep an eye on you. So I open the bathroom door. The door opens this way, and she's on this side, which is completely open, and I should have, in theory, I should have seen her. I opened the door, and she just very softly goes, "Are you okay?" And I jumped. I was like, shit! She scared the shit out of me. And she's like, "Let's get you back to the bed." I felt great. I'm going to tell you right now, I felt freaking awesome. I was there for something positive. I was there because I was trying to achieve a goal, trying to do something that I really wanted to do. It's like my last ditch effort to kind of get the thing out of life that I've wanted ever since I was a little girl. And this was kind of like my last ditch effort to make that kind of thing possible. So there was something very positive in that in itself. And then waking up feeling that way was kind of like solidifying that. It's like, yeah, you did something really good. So I have this tendency to kind of attribute superhuman strengths to myself. And I say attribute because I don't know if I trick myself into thinking I can do these things, or maybe I am a little bit stronger and I don't realize it. But either way, I kind of do overexert myself in situations where I have a tendency to where I can avoid, say, doctors or nurses' orders. And as much as I didn't want to sit down, I kind of wanted to get dressed and walk around. It was important that I had to get back in the bed, wait for my husband to come back into recovery. Finally, they discharged me. I wanted to go for coffee after, and he's like, "No, we're not going to a coffee shop." I wanted to sit outside a coffee shop. It was a really nice day. I'm like, let's sit outside a coffee shop. Let's have a London fog. Let's enjoy the day. He's like, "You're going home. You're going to sleep. You need to take your freaking thyroid medication," which I didn't take that morning because you can't eat or drink anything like from midnight onward. And that meant I couldn't take my thyroid medication. So I had to wait till I got home to take my thyroid medication. He's like, "You need to go home. We need to take your thyroid medication, and you're going to take a nap." So kind of reluctantly I did that, and I slept hard. And then I woke up and I'm like, hey, I want to go to H Mart. If you're not familiar with H Mart, it's like one of my favorite stores. It's an Asian grocery store that has also like little restaurants inside. It's mostly Korean based, but it has like other stuff in there too. They have like Chinese, Thai, Filipino, they have Indian, but after 9 p.m., all sushi and all gimbap is half off. So when I woke up, the first thing my brain said was, okay, in order for you to heal, you need salmon and tuna sushi. That's going to help you. So that's like what embedded in my brain, and my husband was all for it because he gets to have Korean fried chicken. We're on our way. And I'm still feeling invincible until I sneeze. You ever sneeze so hard that whatever position you're in when the sneeze happens, you're stuck in that position and you can't move? I sneezed and was convinced that I may have blown part of my insides out of the bottom of me. I did not, but that sensation in itself was enough for me to say, you know what? Maybe I'm not okay. Maybe I need to take doctor's orders and listen to the nurses, and they know what they're talking about. I'm post-op. I'm post-surgery. This is normal. People bleed, because naturally I have this tendency to kind of revert back to my like late teens, early 20s when I was taking care of myself, and say that I need to toughen up and I need to like fight my way through these things. I can't rest. I need to like power through it in order to be okay. That's not normal. That's not right. Sometimes the body does need to rest to heal, but I always attributed allowing myself that time to rest and be still with kind of being weak and allowing things to take over, and you're not strong unless you power through it. No, what I was doing was I was proposing a big bleeding risk. And it wasn't until like after I got to H Mart and everything and I'm walking around the store where I'm like holding onto the cart, I'm like, oh yeah, I feel it. It's surgery. You're going to bleed. You're going to need time to heal. So don't be like me. Listen to the doctors. If the doctors say rest, rest. There's no harm in resting. It does not make you in any way weak. It's just some silly kind of hang up that I have where I need to kind of fight through everything. I have to fight through everything. I'm allowing myself time to like self-care, allowing myself time to heal, and convincing myself that despite what your non-goth or non-alternative peers might have etched into your brain, no, goth does not make you superhuman. It doesn't mean that you have any more strength or ability than anyone else. That you're a human being. We're all the same. We just like better music than you do. You probably have no idea what I'm talking about here. And the reason is I did discuss prior to this point, but unfortunately that file became corrupt and you now kind of have no context. So I'm going to give you a little bit of context. What I discussed was how I felt very othered by non-alternative peers as well as my family as a young goth, and how that kind of conditioned me subconsciously, made me kind of believe certain things about myself. And what I mean by othered was I had cousins who were my age as well as, younger. And being a young goth, this is the 90s. So you don't have access to a lot of information. Obviously, like the internet is very minuscule. Whatever they see about goths or anyone alternative, they see on our talk shows. So I was kind of othered in the sense where they saw me as almost non-human. And for example, we would go to a family gathering and they'd see me eat food and be shocked by that. And they would kind of say something along the lines of, oh, wait, you eat that? It's cake, of course. Just random things like that. And this happened every time I did something that was relatable to them. Because I was alternative, they were not alternative. Every time they saw me do something, like we would laugh at the same part of a film, this is something that shocked them. And through the years, as time progressed, what ended up happening is I kind of subconsciously developed a sense that I was different in some way physically. And I didn't realize it until I started attributing things that happened to quote unquote normies as something, well, it wouldn't happen to me because I'm a goth. Well, why the hell wouldn't it? Just because I'm part of a subculture doesn't mean that I'm in any way physically different. But that's kind of what I was discussing in some kind of a weird thought process that I had kind of had to shimmy out of. Anyway, that's the context here. So the morning following surgery, I must have received probably about 3 calls that day from ambulatory services. And the reason that ambulatory was calling is, firstly, they need to check on you. They want to make sure that you're feeling okay and kind of keep an eye on that and make sure that you know that there's a number you call just in case of anything. It makes you feel a lot safer and more secure when you know that they're kind of on top of it like that. Additionally, the first morning they call you to let you know what they got. And if you know me, you know that I'm highly superstitious, so I'm not going to tell you everything because I don't want to jinx it. But I'll tell you this much. So what they found were 10 follicles. And out of the 10 follicles, 7 contained eggs. Out of the 7 eggs, 4 were mature. If you've seen my last video about why I'm doing IVF, etc., and what I've been going through, you know part of the reason for my fertility issues has to do with my left fallopian tube being for display purposes only, because it's blocked at the distal portion. And what that basically means is, if I ovulate on the left, that egg is going nowhere. So there are 3 types of occlusions you can have in your fallopian tube. It's one at the beginning, in the middle, and then of course at the end. Beginning and middle, you can clear that with fluid. The one at the end tends to be scar tissue, and you're going to have surgery to have that completely cleared. So that's of course where mine was. Add insult to injury, I am a lefty, which means that I throw eggs on the left. I mature them on the left, I make more on the left for some reason. My left one is like turbocharged. 4 that were the turbocharged, mature and ready to go, left side. So it's fortunate that, you know, I had the egg retrieval because I wouldn't have gotten them otherwise. And that's where they came from. Well, I was probably in the recovery room at that point. They were already attempting fertilization because by the following day, they had an update as to how many fertilized, which I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to jinx things. I know about IVF. I've known about the process. I've known people that have gone through it, and I've watched so many videos on it to where you're like painfully aware of the entire process from start to finish. And it's not until you go through it and before, like, you know that out there, that there exists a number of cells that are a mixture of both you and your partner. 50% me, 50% my husband are out there. And we're here. It is a mind-melting experience. It messes with your brain. That night, I was having dreams just about cells, just cells floating around. And I kept getting calls from different doctors to talk to me about these cells and tell me how they were doing. And every time I would answer the phone, I would have my heart in my throat like they're going to tell me horrible news, and they're just giving me news about these cells. I know about the whole process of IVF. I've read about it, watched a million videos, and I've been kind of well-versed for quite some time, and even more so in the last kind of few months, really doing my research. So it's easy to quantify like what kind of goes on until you go through it. Until you know that you are here, and all the way over there exists a cluster of cells that are 50% you and 50% your beloved spouse. And they're out there. And there is just something incredibly trippy about that. Until I actually did it, I didn't realize how incredibly crazy that is. Because now I'm overwhelmed with a sense of worry for these cells that are over there. And I know that they're an hour west of me, and I just want to go check on them, and I constantly want to call and make sure they're okay. It's the weirdest feeling that I'm so scared and worried and heartbroken and protective over just cells in a petri dish. But I guess like kind of going through this entire process really leaves no room for doubt as to whether or not you're doing things spur of the moment, because you can't, not with this. So today is Sunday. Unless it's an emergency, I can't call today, but I can call tomorrow. And I'm scared because like day 3 and day 5 are both like very crucial points. Like, are they going to make it past? So I'm going to call tomorrow, and I want to see what's going on, if they can update me. I'm scared. There's also something kind of hopeful about it, regardless of whether or not I guess it makes it past the stage, because for many years I've wanted this, and for many years I've actually been trying. And when you kind of get fail after fail after fail, and then suddenly you have physical evidence that you have technically joined forces, so to speak, there's something kind of comforting in that. So it's been a rough 3 months. A lot of bruises, a lot of injections, a lot of blood drawn. I took a lot of blood. So I'm kind of making it a point to show myself a little bit of care and attention. I'm watching, allowing myself to relax with my heating pad, watching like K-dramas because I have to have the heating pad on my lower abdomen, which helps heal. So watching K-dramas, eating sushi, drinking tea, and trying not to like stress. It's hard not to. Like once you know they exist and they're out there, it's really hard not to stress. So something that I'm really curious about, because I've never really said the whole goth superhuman thing out loud. I'm kind of curious what you think. If you've ever had that same effect to where the normies kind of other you in so much of a sense to where they become so surprised by your normal behaviors that it makes you subconsciously question how much different you are than them. Like, does it make you seem like you have more resilience? Does it seem like you're more open-minded on more of a surface level? Because obviously, like, we're different because, we're part of a subculture, the kind of music that we listen to, the way that we live our lives, the way that we choose to dress and present ourselves to the world. Like, obviously that's going to be different, but do you feel different in ways that are almost physical? Like me post-surgery launching out of the bed in an assless gown, thinking that I'm running a marathon and feel fucking fabulous. This isn't actually my weekly video, by the way. My weekly video is going to be teaching you how to dye clothing, which I'm really excited about because I'm trying tie-dye for the first time in many years. I did tie-dye when I was in elementary school this was in Queens, but I remember we did tie-dye and it was so much fun. And I totally wanted to try it again, and I never did it after. The only thing I did was I bleach treated after that, but this is the first time working with color. So I ordered all the stuff necessary, and I'm going to be doing that tomorrow. But I just felt like talking to you today, and I hope everybody is doing well and enjoying this freaking amazing weather that we've been having. And until next time, bye.